This is the Mop Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Donald Trump is now the most unpopular president in modern American history. That's according to The Economist, which scores Trump now having the highest disapproval rating of any president since they first began asking the question back in 2009. For some reason, Americans don't like a president who was found civilly liable for sexually assaulting and then defaming a woman. And then, after a unanimous jury orders him to pay her close to $90 million in damages, keeps tying it up in the courts. And after every court, except the Supreme Court, we're still waiting to hear from the Supreme Court on that one, every court ordered Donald Trump to pay E. Jean Carroll $90 million because a jury unanimously said he sexually assaulted her and defamed her. So instead of paying her the $90 million, this week, according to CNN, he has ordered his Department of Justice to open up a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll. CNN out with the exclusive that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche opening up a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll. It's based on Trump's accusation that she lied under oath during a deposition. Back in 2022, she was asked if she was getting any outside financing for her legal team. And during that 2022 deposition, E. Jean Carroll testified her lawyers would only get paid if she won. Donald Trump claiming that's perjury because it was later discovered that some of the early legal fees might have been paid by Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. So that money wasn't going to E. Jean Carroll, it was going to her lawyers, and E. Jean Carroll later said she was not in the loop on this, that it was negotiated by her attorney, Roberta Kaplan. So she had no idea that there were fees being paid to Roberta Kaplan, allegedly through Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. She was assured by Roberta Kaplan that it was all on a contingency basis. If she wins, the lawyers get a piece. She said later, E. Jean Carroll later said, maybe I was told that Hoffman was covering some of the legal fees, but I forgot. This is what our Department of Justice is focusing on right now, criminally prosecuting E. Jean Carroll because she got a jury, several juries, to award her about $90 million because Donald Trump, they said, sexually assaulted and then defamed her. Lewis Kaplan, the judge in that trial, put into writing twice that Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll in common law parlance. He said New York State, for some reason, differentiates between rape and sexual assault. By the way, they no longer do. They changed the law. It's types of penetration. Penile penetration is rape. Any other kind of penetration is considered sexual assault. Now, after this trial, they've changed the law in New York State. Any forced penetration is called rape. And the judge twice put into writing that Donald Trump was found civilly liable for, quote, rape in common law parlance. That's all George Stephanopoulos needed to say, and ABC wouldn't have cut that check for $20 million. Well, recently fired Attorney General Pam Bondi says she has been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. The doctor said, you've got cancer, but let's talk about the Dow at 50,000. That's what you came here to talk about. That's why you came to see me. How great the Dow Jones Industrial Average is doing. It's at 50,000, Pam Bondi. Well, we wish Pam Bondi a speedy recovery in prison for perjuring herself before the House Judiciary Committee earlier this year when she testified under oath that there was no evidence inside the Epstein files that incriminated Donald Trump. That is a lie. There are thousands of documents that serve as evidence that incriminates Donald Trump. Now, evidence is not proof. Evidence serves as the reason to investigate Donald Trump, which she refused to do. Donald Trump ordered repairs of the reflecting pool outside the Lincoln Memorial just in time for next month's big celebration of his birthday and our nation's 250th anniversary. The cost comes to a little more than $13 million to fix the reflecting pool. And the no-bid contract, which are forbidden, but people who are doing it got a no-bid contract. It was awarded to a little-known Virginia company named Atlantic Industrial Coatings. Now, at the beginning, Trump said it would only cost $1.5 million to fix the reflecting pool. He said, because I'm a builder, I know how to do this on the cheap. He said it would cost about $1.5 million. So far, it's costing $13 million. And according to the New York Times, 20% of that is just profit on the no-bid contract. Federal guidelines demand that contractors bid on a job promising to take as low a profit margin as possible. You get the contract if you can bring it in cheaper. Most of the contractors, their profit margins are about 6%. This one so far is 20%. That's what Atlantic Industrial Coatings is marking up, 20%. The New Republic did a follow-up on the New York Times story. Yesterday, they called Atlantic Industrial Coatings in Virginia. They've never done any business with the government before. They told the New Republic, no comment. California Governor Gavin Newsom said his state will place a 100% tax on anyone who benefits from Donald Trump's $1.8 billion fund established to pay Trump's allies who can prove they are victims of the Biden Justice Department weaponizing the law. You mean enforcing it? Newsom said the tax will prevent anyone getting money for attacking Capitol Police officers or attempting to overthrow our democracy. The Trump administration will challenge this tax, claiming it violates the Constitution's Supremacy Clause, which forbids states from sidestepping federal laws, rules, or regulations. But Gavin Newsom, who's running for president, is inviting this lawsuit, as is a panel of retired federal judges who just petitioned the courts to reopen the settlement that Donald Trump made with the Justice Department to establish this fund. You might remember Trump initially sued the federal government for billions of dollars after his tax returns, along with thousands of others, were leaked to the public. The Department of Justice agreed to settle the case with Trump last month by promising, first, that the IRS would cancel any ongoing audits of Donald Trump, his family, and his friends. The settlement that Donald Trump struck with Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, the settlement Trump struck with Blanche also established this $1.8 billion fund that will be paid out to anyone who can prove they were unfairly prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department. This panel of retired judges are petitioning the courts claiming fraud. They say that Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general who used to be Donald Trump's defense lawyer, they say Todd Blanche is guilty of fraud. That as Trump's former defense lawyer and now acting attorney general, Todd Blanche agreed to settle with Trump. And Trump's family in order to pay out $1.8 billion, and there's no oversight on the panel that determines who qualifies for the $1.8 billion. That panel is appointed by Todd Blanche and Donald Trump. This panel of judges who are calling fraud, they insist federal law dictates that this kind of settlement between the President of the United States and the Justice Department, that kind of settlement must be ordered by a judge. They're saying it's fraud. They say for Trump to sue the federal government for billions because his tax returns, along with thousands of others, were leaked. For Trump to sue the Justice Department for billions and then have the Justice Department, his Justice Department, settle with him without that settlement officially sanctioned by a judge, that is fraud. Of course it is. Former First Lady Jill Biden is promoting her new book. She says, while watching her husband's 2024 debate against Donald Trump, she was terrified he was having a stroke on national television. She thought Biden was having a stroke. He wasn't. The rest of us were. We were all suffering a stroke watching Biden, but he wasn't having a stroke during that debate. It took 3 months for my vocal cords to recover after I went up 3 octaves immediately after saying, Joe did great. He kicked Trump's ass. We had a watch party after I was going, Joe was great. Joe Biden was great. I want my vocal cords back. The 2026 midterms are in full swing. We have California primaries next week, and there are some interesting results from Tuesday's Texas runoff. Now, one of the candidates seeking re-election is South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, seen here being asked to show us on the doll where Donald Trump touched him. The South Carolina Republican primary is June 9th, and Lindsey Graham has no intention of ending up like Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn, who was primaried out of office on Tuesday after Trump endorsed Cornyn's challenger, Ken Paxton. Paxton beat him by 28 percentage points on Tuesday. For the record, I told you it was going to be a blowout. I didn't think it would be 28%. No, Lindsey Graham does not want to end up like John Cornyn or Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, who on May 16th finished third in his state's primary, more than 20 points behind the Trump-endorsed challenger, Julia Letlow. He doesn't want to end up like Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie. Lindsey Graham does not want to end up like Thomas Massie, Republican, who co-authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act and ended up losing on May 19th to his Trump-endorsed challenger, Ed Galrine. He lost by roughly 10 points. By the way, that's Thomas Massie in Costa Rica earlier in the week on vacation with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's how you know somebody's taking it rough. He's like, wow, on vacation with that's TMZ. They released this photo. Thomas Massie with Marjorie and Marjorie's fiancé. I don't know what makes Thomas Massie more of a glutton for punishment, challenging Trump or vacationing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. By the way, they're on the beaches of Costa Rica, which are great if you want to soak up the Jewish space laser beams. Come home with a really nice sunburn. So Lindsey Graham doesn't want to be like Cornyn, Massie, or Cassidy. He is never going to get on Trump's bad side again. He got on his bad side in 2016 and he learned his lesson. How do you stay on Donald Trump's good side? You lie. Here is Lindsey Graham last night on Fox News. Get out your stopwatch. This is 13 seconds. Count the lies. This is remarkable. Let's see how many lies he can tell in 13 seconds.
Obama and Biden screwed Iran up. and Donald Trump is fixing it. Obama gave Iran tens of billions of dollars, and they took the money and they started building nuclear uranium with it, weapons grade material. Biden reversed all of Trump's policies when he took over, and Donald Trump stopped Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. They're the weakest they've been since 1979. They're on the verge of a peace deal because they're weak.
Huh? What? Is that Lindsey Graham? Yes, it is. That I counted 9 lies in 13 seconds. Those aren't talking points, Lindsey. Those are lies. For example,
Obama and Biden screwed Iran up, and Donald Trump is fixing it.
Yes, he's really fixed it. First of all, Iran didn't enrich uranium past 3% during the Obama administration. Biden didn't screw up Iran. He released, this is what they're upset about, he released $6 billion of Iran's money, which had been frozen. He released it to get 5 Americans released from an Iranian prison. So that's coddling Iran. Continue.
Obama gave Iran tens of billions of dollars.
You're an effing liar. He didn't give Iran tens of billions of dollars. Obama unfroze tens of billions of Iran's dollars in exchange for Iran signing the 2015 nuclear deal, which, Lindsey, is far better than anything Trump is ever going to be able to negotiate with Iran now. Go ahead, liar.
And they took the money and they started building nuclear uranium with it, weapons grade material.
You're a liar. They didn't build weapons grade material. They discontinued their weapons program in 2003. Even Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, testified to that. What they did do, Lindsey, is enrich their uranium up to 20%. But that was 2 years after Trump pulled out of the Iran deal in 2018. For the nearly 2.5 years that the deal was in effect, UN inspectors every quarter reported Iran was totally compliant with that deal. Iran didn't begin to enrich uranium beyond 3% until years after Donald Trump tore up the deal. Continue, liar.
Building nuclear uranium with it, weapons grade material. Biden reversed all of Trump's policies when he took over.
No, he didn't. Trump pulled out of the deal. Biden did not put us back into the deal. He wanted to, but he didn't. So he kind of maintained Trump's policy. All he did was give Iran $6 billion of its own dollars to free American prisoners. Go ahead, liar.
And Donald Trump stopped Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Really, in a time machine, he went back to 2003 and told them to stop building a nuclear weapon? How many times do intelligence officers have to testify before Congress to say that Iran gave up its nuclear weapons program 23 years ago? Go ahead.
They're the weakest they've been since 1979. They're on the verge of a peace deal because they're weak.
Really? Okay. So why aren't we going through the Strait of Hormuz if they're so weak? Why are we not seizing Karg Island if Iran is so weak? Why aren't we just storming the beaches near Hormuz? They're not on the verge of a peace deal because Trump isn't interested in signing a peace deal because he can't. The reason he can't is Iran is anything but weak. You're weak, Lindsey. You're weak. Iran is never going to agree to anything Trump wants. And what does Trump want? He wants a deal that looks better than the one he tore up. He wants a deal that's better than Obama's. Can't get it. Cannot get it. Donald Trump's Board of Peace has no money. Well, of course it doesn't. It's Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Remember the Board of Peace? It was supposed to take the place of the United Nations. Trump is the chairman. Of course it has no money. And countries that want to join Trump's Board of Peace have to pay a membership fee of several $billions. It's like Mar-a-Lago. And to make sure the money went where it was supposed to go, Trump said, I'm putting my son-in-law, I'm not making this up, I'm putting my son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in charge of the Board of Peace. So a lot of countries pledged money, $17 billion to be exact. They pledged it, but for some reason, they're not following through. I wonder why. The Financial Times reporting that Trump's Board of Peace's coffers are almost completely empty, and their staff cannot perform the important function of funneling all the money into the Trump family's bank accounts, which can't be audited because of all the horrible things he does. The California primary is June 2nd. That would be next week, and we're watching the governor's race. It's a jungle primary, meaning the top two, regardless of party, end up on the ballot come November. Xavier Becerra, the son of Mexican immigrants, is leading. That's according to the Real Clear Politics averages. It's the averages of the polls. He's got 22% of the vote. Becerra was a United States congressman. He served as California's attorney general. During the Biden administration, he was U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. You know, like Bobby Kennedy Jr. without a worm eating away at his brain. Joe Biden has not endorsed Xavier Becerra. Republican Steve Hilton has 21.6% of the vote, according to the Real Clear averages. And he became a U.S. citizen 4 years ago, Republican. He's from Hungary. Most voters know him from Fox News. Billionaire Tom Steyer, who ran for president in 2020, has 15.8% of the vote. He seems to be running maybe the most progressive campaign. He's openly calling for single-payer health insurance for the state of California. That was something Gavin Newsom campaigned on 8 years ago. But when the bill sat on his desk, he sat on it. Be careful with Newsom. He ran on single payer for the state of California, and then he choked. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter, this is remarkable, only 8.3% of the vote. She opposes the wealth tax. That's a referendum on the November ballot calling for a one-time 5% tax on the wealth of California billionaires. So if you're worth $2 billion, 5% of that goes to the state of California. It's a one-time tax. She says, no, the state doesn't tax wealth. It taxes income, and we have to start taxing the salaries of millionaires and billionaires and their income at a much higher rate. She's right. I agree with her on that. But Tom Steyer supports this one-time 5% tax, as well as higher taxes in general on the wealthy. Look, I hope it passes, and I hope they take 5% of the net worth of all the billionaires who live in California. What's smarter and what's more likely is to just start taxing income for billionaires at a much higher rate. In Los Angeles, a new Emerson poll showing the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, on top with 30% of the vote. The same poll shows Republican Spencer Pratt, who starred in MTV's reality show The Hills, Spencer Pratt holding a 22% share of the vote, which is pretty good considering he's a complete and total moron. Good on you, Spencer Pratt. Here is Spencer Pratt being interviewed on CNN. You tell me if Spencer Pratt's not ready to play a much larger role in Republican politics after Tuesday's primaries. Listen to this.
Who is your political role model?
Jesus Christ.
Okay, I mean, that's what.
He
Yeah,
was a politician. He had to, he had to go in and.
As a politician, he had to go in. Jesus was a politician. According to Trump, Jesus is soft on crime, or at least Pope Leo is soft on crime. Republican firebrand Congressman Chip Roy announced he wasn't running for re-election this year, and instead he went after the Republican nomination for Texas Attorney General. On Tuesday, despite running a very strong and convincing campaign against Muslims and Sharia law, Chip Roy ended up losing the race to Mays Middleton, a state senator, as well as an oil and gas executive. Chip Roy losing the race for Texas Attorney General by 10 points. That's the job Ken Paxton had. Chip Roy was running against Muslims. 2 hearings this year in Congress on Sharia law. You cannot get more Islamophobic than Chip Roy got. In the Texas 35th Congressional District, Democratic runoff on May 26, Tuesday, talking about the 35th Congressional District in Texas, Johnny Garcia defeated Maureen Galindo. This surprised me. I thought Maureen Galindo was going to win. She's never held elective office, but she's a sex therapist, so she knows something about taking positions. And she had a wonderful platform. She campaigned on a promise to turn Texas's Karnes ICE Detention Center into a prison for American Zionists and former ICE officers, and they'd all be held for human trafficking. And she added the Karnes ICE Detention Center would also serve as a castration processing center for pedophiles, which will probably, quote, be most of the Zionists, according to Maureen Galindo. I'm surprised she didn't win. That's a sex therapist who doesn't understand that chemical castration doesn't stop pedophiles. It's not about, well, why would she know that? You can castrate a rapist or a pedophile. They're still going to do what they do because it's not about pleasuring themselves. It's about destroying others. Texas primaries also had an interesting result for Al Green, who also lost on 2. That would be the wrong Al Green. That's not the Al Green I'm talking about. No, that's Mo Green. By the way, what happened to his glasses? What happened to Mo Green's glasses? You'd think a man like Mo Green could afford a nicer pair of glasses. There we go. Congressman Al Green seen here heckling Donald Trump's State of the Union. Al Green lost the race for the newly redrawn 18th Congressional District on Tuesday. Green served 11 terms and recently introduced one more resolution to impeach Donald Trump. He's been calling for Trump's impeachment since the beginning. Green lost to freshman Congressman Christian Menefree. Because of the redistricting in Texas, we had 2 incumbent Democratic House members competing for 1 seat. A new public policy poll now shows Democrat James Tallarico, he's the Democratic nominee for Senate in Texas, a new public policy poll showing he's got a 7-point lead over Ken Paxton, the Republican Texas Attorney General, who defeated incumbent John Cornyn by a landslide in Tuesday's runoff. Well, I've been burned before. I thought Colin Allred was going to beat Cruz 2 years ago. I thought Beto O'Rourke was going to beat Cruz in 2018. Came close. Beto O'Rourke came pretty close, 200,000 votes. He lost to Cruz by 200. My heart, I keep waiting for Texas to return to its LBJ roots. Everyone is saying Tallarico has a good chance, and that's why, if you watch Fox News, they're calling him gay. That's the new thing. He's gay. We want to see the girlfriend. And White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller is calling Tallarico transgender as an insult. Like, don't vote for him. He's a transgender Democrat. Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, doesn't care for how the Democratic Party responded to her husband, Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, who invented the child separation policy. The Democratic Party is fighting back. You call James Tallarico a transgender person. What is the proper response to Stephen Miller calling James Tallarico a transgender candidate? You tell him to shut the F up. That's what you do. And that's what they did. And they also called him ugly, which he is. He's a very ugly person because he's ugly on the inside. There isn't enough grooming possible to disguise the ugliness inside a person. Here is, speaking of ugly, ugly people, the odious and despicable wife of Stephen Miller, Katie Miller. She's on Fox News last night taking umbrage. This is typical bully behavior. Her husband calls James Tallarico a transgender candidate, right? As an insult. Pretty damning to the most vulnerable population in our country. I can't think of a more vulnerable group of people than America's transgender community, especially now with this turd in the Oval Office. But when you stand up and bite back and call Stephen Miller ugly, look what happens.
Now, Katie, by the way, your husband came under attack today when he said, like, the Democrats are, perhaps going to nominate their first transgender Senate candidate, talking about Tallarico. And they responded by just, basically saying, shut up, you ugly F word, essentially. Any word for the Democrats, their little Twitter account?
This is the same violent political rhetoric that is leading people to shooting up, whether it be the White House Correspondents' Dinner or President Trump and Butler.
I mean, it's not even clever. It's just so, this is how stupid. She's stupid and ugly. Calling Stephen Miller, who's ugly, after he calls James Tallarico a transgender candidate, that's what leads to political violence, calling Stephen Miller ugly. That's what leads to violence. Because so many ugly... No, you know what leads to violence? Using the term transgender as a pejorative. They are the most vulnerable, protected class in America. That's what leads to violence. Calling you ugly, Katie Miller, which you are, you're hideous, that doesn't lead to violence. But you only have like some default settings, like somebody attacks your ugly, vicious husband, you say, oh, that leads to violence. Meanwhile, your husband is committing acts of violence against children, separating children from their mothers. But the minute you go after an ugly, ugly miskite like Stephen Miller or Katie Miller, they go, oh, you're creating a violent atmosphere. This is a tweet from Stephen Miller talking about something called remigration. This was last year. The Trump plan to end the invasion of small-town America, remigration. This is a term that is taking hold in Europe among neo-Nazis. The term remigration, the Alternative for Germany party, is all about remigration. It's taking citizens, Muslim citizens, and Muslim immigrants and sending them back to their country of origin. And it's catching on among the fascists and racists here in the United States. And Wired is out with a story, and everybody should go online and read it. It's the headline is, "The State Department really doesn't want to talk about the Office of Remigration." They've opened up an office of re-migration in order to send non-criminal citizens back home, or non-criminal immigrants back home, like Hilton, the guy who's in second place. He became a citizen, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Remigration would be sending Hilton back to Hungary. And the Office of Remigration over the Department of State is working with the Department of Justice to denaturalize undesirable American citizens, to strip. There are about 13 cases right now where the Justice Department is attempting to strip American citizens of their citizenship. This is Sharon Alfonsi. She reported on CICOT, that's the torture chamber in El Salvador, where we've been sending immigrants. Horrible, horrible place. And Abrego Garcia ended up there. We've talked about this. And 60 Minutes back in December had a story about it. But there's a new head of CBS News. She's a right-wing zealot named Bari Weiss. And she pulled the CICOT story back in December, at least temporarily. And it created a big pushback from legitimate journalists at CBS. They're paying a price. Sharon Alfonsi has been fired. She was fired this week by Bari Weiss. That's her. Bari Weiss firing Sharon Alfonsi. Right-wing bigot Bari Weiss, who is destroying CBS News and will probably try to destroy CNN. Santiago Campos is a high school senior and an award-winning student journalist from Washington, D.C. He won a Mike Wallace Memorial Scholarship. Mike Wallace began 60 Minutes, and a $10,000 scholarship was set up by the Emmy Awards, the News Emmy Awards. They give each year a $10,000 Mike Wallace Memorial Scholarship to the high school senior who demonstrates the most proficiency practicing journalism. And the winner this year is Santiago Campos. And here he is, I think this was 2 nights ago, getting his Mike Wallace. Remember, Mike Wallace started 60 Minutes. Here he is getting his Mike Wallace Memorial Scholarship at the 47th Annual News and Documentary Emmy Awards. A lot of big, powerful people in the audience.
First and foremost, I want to thank the Natus Foundation for this award. I want to thank my friends, family, and my teacher, Ashley Porter. She and my mom are in the room tonight. I want to thank them for the resources and the support that I wouldn't be here without. And while I want to thank CBS News for funding this generous gift towards my education, I want to also acknowledge how the recent direction of the outlet stains the legacy of Mike Wallace, the namesake of this scholarship. As corporate elites take hold over the very pipes through which our information flows, journalism that serves the people becomes increasingly harder to come by, yet ever more crucial. And what the people want is the truth. So if at any time you hesitate to utter the word genocide or remain silent in the face of blatant lies, remember to ask yourself, who is this for? I hope you choose us. Thank you.
I don't think he's even 18. That would be Santiago Campos, winner of this year's Mike Wallace Memorial Scholarship. Yes, Republican Congressman Thomas Keene still hasn't returned to Congress. He's been missing for a couple of months. Nobody quite knows where he is. They don't even know where his wife is. They think it might be health issues. But the New Republic reporting that despite not showing up to work, New Jersey Congressman Thomas Keene still had time to trade stocks. So he's not voting on any bills, but he's trading stocks. In all fairness, we are talking about a New Jersey congressman. And I grew up in Jersey, so we got politicians who've been dead for 75 years still trading stocks. I think Woodrow Wilson, the former governor of New Jersey who became president, I think he just purchased 10,000 shares of CoreCivic and Geo Group. That's Woodrow Wilson. Horrible, horrible Woodrow Wilson. Bad guy. Glad he's gone. Glad he's gone. Woodrow Wilson, bad guy. Anyway, Thomas Keene represents New Jersey's 7th congressional district, and that is very much in play, very flippable in November. Very flippable. Woodrow Wilson, rotten hell, Woodrow Wilson. So Democrats need to flip 4 seats to take control of the Senate. Now, God's joke about redistricting is we're so focused on the House of Representatives. Oh, we're not going to win the House because the Republicans are cheating. Redistricting has nothing to do with the Senate. And I think God's joke is Democrats, if there's any karma, Democrats will take control of the Senate. And if they take either the Senate or the House, Todd Blanche is in a lot of trouble. Todd Blanche, he better drop to his hands and knees and pray to whichever Satan he worships, because the Democrats are going to come for Todd Blanche. I have never seen an acting, even during Watergate, we did not have acting attorney generals breaking the law on behalf of so much corruption as Todd Blanche. I think he's going to end up like Rudy Giuliani. If we get out and vote, we hold our nose and support the Democratic Party. I know Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer don't sit well with you. Most of my listeners are Bernie and AOC support. I know that. But, I'm not going to get into it. So Democrats need to flip 4 seats to take control of the Senate. And one of those senators who is vulnerable is Susan Collins of Maine. A new Maine Morning Star poll now showing the Democratic nominee Graham Plattner is beating Susan Collins by 7 points. I don't make predictions. I've learned my lesson about predicting things. But I think Plattner is great. Bernie's behind him. It's in Bernie's backyard. Maine is next door to New Hampshire. And I think I'm going to keep my mouth shut, not making any predictions. A new University of New Hampshire poll shows Graham Plattner leading Susan Collins by 9 points. President Kennedy's grandson, Jack Schlossberg, is running in the New York primary for the Democratic nomination to fill Jerry Nadler's 12th congressional district. This is my district. So you're going to be hearing about, the reason you hear about Mamdani is he's my mayor, and I live in the 12th congressional district. If you want to knock on my door, I'm at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Or maybe that was the Munsters. I think the Munsters lived at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. So, Jack Schlossberg, look at him. President Kennedy's grandson, and look at that face. Has he inherited his grandfather's charisma? His grandfather, Maurice Schlossberg. I think. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I just because he's a Kennedy, a good Kennedy. Am I going to? I'll let you know. There's another person on the ballot who I should vote for. It's not Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband. He's running. No way. But anyway, Politico reports that Schlossberg has been flip-flopping on Israel. He's been promising that if elected, he would vote to cut off aid to Israel. No more bulldozers, no more bombs for Israel. But Politico, out with an exclusive that Schlossberg appeared at the Harmony Club here in Manhattan. It's made up of prominent Jewish donors. And according to Politico, Schlossberg told them he was totally committed to U.S. support for Israel. He was saying, essentially, I'll vote for bulldozers and bombs. So he's going to have to answer for that. He gives out the Profile and Courage Award. His speech at the Harmony Club, not a profile in courage. Axios reporting more and more Latino voters are having buyer's remorse for voting for Donald Trump. He is cratering among Latino voters. Did something happen? I haven't been following the news. Did Donald Trump do something to alienate the Latino voter? The City, that's a news organization here in New York City, they're out with a new report. So we're not cooperating with ICE. They're doing things on the down low here. There have been some secret roundups conducted by ICE here in New York City. And the City, the news organization, out with a new study showing that ICE agents are basically only targeting Latinos. According to the City, 93% of the more than 1,200 lawsuits filed in New York City against ICE were on behalf of Latino immigrants. Anybody who lives in New York City knows that 93% of the immigrants here in New York City are not Latino. This is a war on Trump is waging war on a very specific type of immigrant. Over Memorial Day weekend, protests erupted outside the Delaney Hall ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. There's a hunger strike because it's a for-profit prison. They're complaining about the conditions and lack of sanitation, one meal a day. There were clashes between protesters. We had pro-ICE. This is Jersey. So we had a Jersey. It's not funny because I've been to some of the vigils out there. But this is New Jersey, so they had a Jersey smackdown. You have some Jersey people who showed up to protest in favor of ICE. Who does that? Only in New Jersey are you going to see pro-ICE demonstrators. And it got even uglier than something can get in New Jersey, which can be very ugly. I know, New Jersey has some nice places. I know. Not where I lived. And even the nice places don't have nice people. So U.S. Senator Andy Kim is one of the nice people, and he tried to break up the protesters and the counter-protesters. So, of course, he got hit with pepper spray and pepper balls. And, yeah. Delaney Hall, by the way, is run by Geo Group, which signed a 15-year contract with ICE in February of last year. It's a $1 billion contract to run Delaney Hall and turn a profit. That's Geo Group. Record deaths this year in these for-profit detention centers run primarily by either Geo Group or Core Civic, big donors to the Republican Party, mass suicides going on. The Associated Press out with a story, record number of suicides, lack of medical attention to save money, because they're doing it for profit. During Wednesday's cabinet meeting, Markwayne Mullin, former Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, who is now head of the Department of Homeland Security, during the cabinet meeting, he was asked to comment about the conditions inside Delaney Hall and the protest where United States Senator Andy Kim was hit by federal agents with pepper balls and pepper spray. Here is the brilliant Markwayne Mullin.
It shows this radical left Democrats' priorities when they decide to go out and protest a detention center where we're housing rapists, child predators, murderers, drug dealers, and they choose Memorial Day.
How does this lie get perpetuated that there are rapists and murderers in an immigration detention center? Study after study shows they have no criminal record. You think they're going to put a rapist or a murderer in a for-profit detention center like the Delaney Hall? If you're a murderer or a pedophile or a rapist, you go to state prison. There are no pedophiles, murderers, and rapists inside any of these for-profit detention centers, because if they're as dangerous, if they're really pedophiles or murderers, you don't put them in a for-profit ICE detention facility. You're a convict. It has nothing to do with immigration. Doesn't matter if you're an immigrant from El Salvador and you commit murder in the United States, you don't go into an immigration detention facility. You go into a state or federal prison. So they just keep repeating this lie. And study after study shows none of them are criminals. And none of them have criminal records. They're just people of color. And he's objecting to it because it's Memorial Day. How dare you stage a protest on Memorial Day? Go on, Markwayne Mullin.
And they choose Memorial Day of all the time to go protest something that.
Of all the days to protest people's bondage, to choose Memorial Day, think of all the men and women who sacrificed their lives fighting wars for freedom, to choose that day to protest on behalf of people illegally held in concentration camps. You dishonor all our soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice. Go F yourself. By the way, speaking of Memorial Day, stolen valor, Markwayne Mullin. He claims he's tasted war. And, oh, really? Where did you serve? Well, I didn't serve. So he's kind of presented himself as a veteran who has tasted war because as a congressman, he went on a fact-finding mission somewhere where there was fighting, and he tried to convince voters that he was a veteran. He's a UFC fighter. That's what he is. But he's never stolen valor. You defile the people who made the ultimate sacrifice, Markwayne Mullin, when you claim to have served in the military and you didn't. Continue, Markwayne Mullin.
It's because they're on a hunger strike when there was only a handful of individuals that was refusing to eat because they want their ethnic group or their ethnic right food. Well, they can go back to their country and get whatever food they want. The fact is, we're giving them the calories they want. This isn't Holiday Inn. We're giving them sanitation.
We're giving them, so the racism, they're not getting their ethnic food. But we're giving them sanitation. No, you're not. You have overflowing toilets that don't work. There are reports of they're getting one meal a day if they're lucky. they are, and there's also, they're getting paid 13 cents an hour to do work around the facility. If these were prison camps, they would be war crimes. These violate the Geneva Convention. They violate all international immigration law, by the way, all asylum law. Please continue.
But for the Democrats to and the governor, like Governor Sherrill and Senator Kim and Senator Booker, to go out and do something like this of all the days is very frustrating.
Yeah, Memorial Day. You dishonor our veterans. By the way, the Daily Mail out with a story about Department of Homeland Security leader Markwayne Mullin. He wants to get his wife, Kristi Mullin, the same job that Kristi Noem gave her boyfriend, Corey Lewandowski. It's the same type of job that Elon Musk had, where you only have to work for the federal government half the year. She would collect about $140,000, but not have to reveal her financials. He's trying to do that. And he's using the plane the same way Kristi Noem used it. I don't know if he's got a bag of adult toys the way Kristi Noem did, but he's flying back and forth on the private Department of Homeland Security jet every weekend, and he's trying to bring his wife in. Do we have pictures of their kids? What do we have here? No, I have just the wife. That's him being sworn in right before Pam Bondi got taken out. This is the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for finding me. Please like this episode. That's the best way to help me, so I stay in your feed. Just hit the like button, and that tells whatever. They're throttling me back. You know what's going on. So if you want to help me, just leave a comment. Correct me if I got anything wrong. Share this episode. Tell people about it. It doesn't surprise me that it's getting harder to reach the people who subscribe to me, which is why I'm asking you to go to davidfeldmanshow.com and sign up for my newsletter so I can reach you, but I won't violate your box. I don't send out a lot of emails. I don't send out my newsletter a lot, but we do special things, and I can't rely on people who cut checks to Donald Trump to help me. That's just not the way it is. I'm old enough to understand. It's frustrating, but this is the way it works. Okay. Bloomberg reporting that shopping for groceries is getting so expensive, it's cheaper now to go on Ozempic. The United States, well, that's not, they didn't say that, I did. But I don't even know if Ozempic is healthy. The United States Department of Agriculture now predicting that food prices by the end of this year will have increased anywhere between 3.2% to more than 5%. We could see 5% inflation. That would be the largest jump in nearly 4 years. Now, we just are experiencing the largest jump in 4 years. Beef prices have doubled since 2020, up nearly 15% this year alone. Some estimates now saying before 2026 is over, beef will cost an additional 6 to 18%. Look at those adorable cows. Aren't they don't you just want to, I just want to grind you up and slather you in ketchup and onions. You look so cute and have you ever met a cow? Ever hugged a cow? They're adorable. Here, this is your hamburger. Ranchers say they have the smallest number of herds in 75 years. So what is driving the population implosion among cattle? What's going on? Originally I figured, well, this is a first world country and cows are choosing not to have more veal because that's what people in privileged societies do. They have fewer veal. But I'm a vegan, so I really don't understand what kind of family planning bulls and cows practice. I just figured, like most of us, they have second thoughts about bringing hamburger and steak into this cruel and vicious world. It turns out, though, what's decreasing the number of cattle is drought, climate change, which is a little ironic because cattle are the second leading cause or source, which would have been easier for me to pronounce than cause. Let's pretend I'm going to start all over again. Cattle are the second leading source for all the greenhouse emissions. They are the second leading cause of drought and climate change, right behind humans. That's Donald Trump running for president in 2024, working the fry station at a McDonald's in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Right after winning in 2024, Trump was photographed aboard his jet enjoying a McDonald's meal with Elon Musk, Don Jr., Mike Johnson, and Robert Make America Healthy Again Kennedy Jr., all chowing down on McDonald's, even though study after study shows eating at McDonald's more than once, possibly twice a month, serves as one of the leading causes of cancer, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. The evidence is overwhelming. But then again, so is the evidence that climate change is man-made, and that doesn't stop Donald Trump from calling climate catastrophe a hoax. He's beholden to the oil companies. That's the truth. And the Republican Party is fighting any alternative to petroleum. Trump will say and do anything on behalf of the oil companies. He's literally said windmills cause cancer. I wish I were making that one up. He says they're the most expensive form of energy. Wind is the cheapest. He says your lights go out when there's no wind. Apparently, he's never heard of batteries. He says windmills kill whales and birds. Well, they don't kill whales. And as for birds, we do have some information on that. Yes, there's an element of truth to that. About 250,000 birds are killed each year because they fly into windmills. But hundreds and hundreds of millions of birds are killed each year flying into skyscrapers and power lines. The Smithsonian Institution and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service say that just inside the contiguous United States alone, kitty cats kill roughly 2 to 4 billion birds a year. I quadruple checked that. Your kitty cats kill anywhere between 2 to 4 billion birds a year here in the United States. They are serial killers. Cats are responsible for the deaths of anywhere between 6 to 22 billion small mammals each year. Here in the United States, kitty cat kills anywhere between 6 to 22 billion small mammals each year. Now, yes, they do kill mice and rats, unless it's a cat living with me. Now, I don't have cats. I'm done with cats. But I used to have a lot. I used to be a cat lady. And they never did what they were supposed to do. They never killed a single mouse for me. They killed a couple of couches because you can't declaw them. And they say don't declaw your cat because they got to be able to run up trees to escape predators? Really? They got to be able to run up trees to escape predators or predate? They run up trees to kill birds. Again, that's why I'm done with cats, because I thought, what, get them declawed. I'm going to get so many letters, but I don't care. I thought, well, if you're going to let them outside, get them declawed so it's a fair fight. So they can't run up trees away from their predators and they can't go after bird. I went to visit my mother and there was this beautiful nest of baby birds, robins. And the cats got the robins. That wouldn't have happened had they been declawed, because the cats wouldn't be able to climb up the tree to kill the baby robins. This is why I'm done with cats, because when I said to the veterinarian, why don't we declaw Melvin, baby Melvin, so it's a fair fight. This was a human, my third son, Melvin. No, the veterinarian was, how dare you talk that way? You don't declaw a cat. Really? Okay. Want to look at my couch? What that effing cat did to my couch? So yeah, I never had a cat who killed a mouse for me. Never a mouse. Melvin was living with me briefly here in New York City. He did discover a mouse in the kitchen, and he walked up to me and said, I think I just saw a mouse. You should get a cat. I said, Melvin, you are a cat. He said, no, I'm not. You're just seeing things. So unless a cat lives with me, they are killing machines. Well, they've killed a couple of relationships for me. But and the reason they're so popular in the United States is they are the only other animal besides humans who kill for fun. But at least they do it with their claws. They don't need a gun. So cats are still better than humans. But this is true. A cat will hunt its prey just for the sport of it, like humans. And they will offer it up as a gift to you. Here. They say, the cat says, have one of my marsupials. The freezer is packed. There's no room. You enjoy this marsupial. Well, thanks, kitty cat, but I prefer my possum dead. I know you think possum tastes better freshly killed, but something about their screams from the oven make me lose my appetite. See, that's how brutal cats are. They injure the animals and then give them to you as a gift. That's what cats do. That's, by the way, a possum. That's a marsupial, a possum. And let me just see here. That is either, let's see, that is either a mother possum or a male possum who spent way too much time in Chernobyl. Those are some nasty growths. He should get them looked at if it's a man. I don't like the look of those, what are those, pustules? Unless it's a woman. And I think it's a mother. It's a mother possum. And yeah, it's a mother possum. That's how bad the economy is. 7 kids still living with her. Well, anybody still here? I've been very depressed because I realized I took a week off from my back, and I realized it's not Trump. I mean, maybe a little. It's me. I like to say it's Trump. It's me. I like to use Trump as an excuse for my back pain, but it's me. He says climate change is a hoax. He said Detroit has to stop making electric cars because the Chinese do it better. So what we have to do, this is what he said on the campaign trail. You can't compete with the Chinese when it comes to electric cars, so keep making cars that run on gasoline. He said there's no money in alternative energy. Well, the truth is Biden placed tariffs on Chinese batteries to protect Detroit, but Trump will say anything because he's beholden to the oil companies. So he's been here for a year and a half. He's back for about a year and a half. And he has incentivized Detroit to stop making electric vehicles. He eliminated the Biden era $7,500 tax credit for purchasing an electric vehicle. One of the reasons Musk turned on Trump. He raised emissions standards so Detroit could still keep making cars that heat up the planet. And while temperatures continue to rise, sales of American cars plummeting. The big three have drastically cut production on electric vehicles since Trump returned. They've decided it's cheaper to lose $50 billion. They've written off $50 billion of investments in electric cars. They said, we're just going to continue to make gasoline engines and we're done basically with electric cars. That's Trump. That's Trump. We're constantly bailing these MFers out. And we're going to have to bail them out again. The big three automakers in Detroit right now are barely profitable. They're just hanging. But sales are down. And so long as the big three steer away from electric vehicles, their sales will continue to decline. Right now, 25% of the world's car sales are electric. And it's just beginning to grow. That's where the growth is. It's why Elon Musk is the wealthiest man in the world, because that POS car, the Tesla, that's how he got his money, on electric cars. That's the future. 55% of all new cars sold in China, electric. In Europe, 30% of all new cars sold in Europe, electric. And it's just going to keep going up and up because 194 countries and the EU are still signatories to the Paris Climate Accords. Only 4 countries are not signatories to the Paris Climate Accords. You know which 4 countries they are? Yemen, Libya, Iran, and the United States, or as I call them, the axis of evil. The rest of the world is the axis of EV. They're trying to save the planet. And they're not waiting for this stupid country we call the United States to start electing Democrats. Biden got us back into the Paris Climate Accords. Trump took us out. Obama signed the accords. Trump pulled us out. Biden put us back in. Trump pulled us back out. The rest of the world is saying, we can't, you're the biggest polluter, and we're not waiting for you to come to your senses. And they see, the rest of the world sees that electric vehicles are not just good for the planet, it's good for their economies. Good investment. Electric vehicles, good investments. More and more consumers, obviously, worldwide, are purchasing electric vehicles. And who's gobbling up the market for electric vehicles? The Chinese. Right now, they have 50%, more than 50% of the world's share. What about 50% of all electric vehicles come from China? Europe produces 30%. The United States, want to venture a guess? 8%. And thanks to Trump, it's falling. So the big growth is in electric vehicles. And thanks to Trump, The United States is only producing 8% of the world's electric vehicles, and it's going down. When it comes to the future of automobiles, Detroit is playing a smaller and smaller role. He's killing the auto industry. The Wall Street Journal out with a story this afternoon that in the United States, 1 million American new car buyers have completely vanished and are never coming back because cars are too expensive to purchase and, of course, maintain, especially with the average price of gasoline going for $4.43 per gallon. Now, that's just a fact. I saw Stephen Miller saying it's coming down. They're just liars. So the average price of a gallon of gas is $4.43. A year ago, it was $3.17 a gallon. Right now in California, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington, they're paying more than $6 a gallon for gas. Diesel, $7, $8. If you're a farmer, you can't plant. Can't plant. Fertilizer. Can't afford it. This administration, Trump, promised to bring manufacturing jobs back to Detroit. And he's now telling not the workers, but the people who run Detroit that cars are not in your future. Your future is in weapons. Pete Hegseth, our defense chief, has publicly called on automakers in Detroit to reposition themselves by getting on the same footing they took during World War II. Hegseth has held high-level talks with Mary Barra, the head of GM, along with other auto executives, telling them get on board what he is calling the arsenal of freedom. Freedom, the arsenal of freedom. Start making weapons. Because why? Well, despite what Trump and Hegseth claim, we're running out of missiles. He's telling GM, Ford, and Chrysler, you got to start making bombs and weapons for us. We're running out of missiles. At the same time, he's calling it treason for anyone to say we're running out of missiles. But it's not treason. It's the truth. We use them all up bombing civilians in Iran. 30% of our Tomahawk missiles were used up bombing schools in Iran. And it takes about 5 years to replenish that stockpile. Half of our stockpile of Patriot missiles, they shoot missiles out of the sky. Half of our Patriot missiles, all used up since February 28th. Takes about 3 years to replenish our stockpiles of Patriot missiles, assuming we don't resume bombing Iran at the level we did before the ceasefire. And Trump yesterday threatened to bomb Oman, which they're one of our allies, but he's thinking of bombing Oman now. The Pentagon wants $1.5 trillion for fiscal year 2027. That's a lot of money, supposedly, for Detroit, should they decide to take Pete Hegseth up on his offer and stop making automobiles and instead start making bombs. Stop making cars that run on gasoline so you can help us fight wars over the gasoline that fuse the automobiles the world no longer wants to buy. We're a really smart country. We're a really smart country. Don't make electric cars. Don't compete with the Chinese or Europe. Keep making gasoline-powered cars that nobody wants to buy. But you should really stop doing that and instead make bombs to help us fight wars for oil. So there'll be plenty of oil for your gasoline-powered cars that nobody wants to drive because it's destroying the planet. These are just facts. These are just facts. You can call this treason, anti-American. These are just facts. All the reporting says the Pentagon privately concedes we fired at least 1,100 long-range stealth cruise missiles, draining the stockpiles. At least 1,000 Tomahawks were fired into Iran. 1,000 Tomahawk missiles, they're about $5 million each. That comes out to 10 times what we purchase each year. We buy about 100 Tomahawk missiles a year. We used 1,000 of them on Iran. Hegseth just said, yeah, go ahead. Waste 1,000 Tomahawks. 1,300 Patriot interceptor missiles have been used at least by us during the war with Iran. Like I said, it will take years to replace them, especially since the United States' military-industrial complex has other customers besides the United States. Take a number. Get in line. We've sold a lot of these interceptors to Kuwait, the UAE, Europe. We'll get to you, America. We'll get to you. Here is Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, testifying before Congress 2 weeks ago. Now, Dan Kane was a general, and then he became a multimillionaire working for the military-industrial complex, and then Trump moved him back through the revolving door to come be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, in a rare moment of clarity, General Dan Kane told Trump, don't bomb Iran. He said, we don't have enough munitions. But Hegseth and Trump wanted to kill people of color. Trump didn't listen. Here's Kane, General Dan Kane, asking the Armed Services Committee to appropriate $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon's 2027 budget so they can build more weapons.
The president's budget supports the department's goal of recharging the defense industrial base and the national industrial base, those small mom and pop manufacturing companies that are out there in your districts that help us generate combat capability.
Wow. Let me hear that again.
Those small mom and pop manufacturing companies.
Those small mom and pop bomb makers. They really are. He's right. They're the small mom and pop bomb manufacturers. They are the heart and soul of the military industrial complex. Everybody thinks of, Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. It's those small little mom and pop bomb makers that we really need to protect. Because I like handmade Tomahawk missiles using recipes handed down over generations. Like the ones made by Pepperidge Farms. The Patriot missile that smiles back. Rich and gooey cluster bombs of chewy chocolate and shrapnel. This is unbelievable. This is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for putting up with my nonsense and paranoia. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong. You can be paranoid and know exactly what's going on. Please share this episode. Tell people about this, please. Trump is using the war in Iran to move markets so his friends can make money, the same way he moved markets with his tariff announcements last year. All those trades right before his big announcements. We know massive bets are being placed right now on oil futures. And these bets come just minutes before one of his proclamations. Every day, he moves markets. We get a different story every day from Donald Trump about Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, Hormuz is opening, but not the Strait. I'm going to keep Hormuz open, but not the Strait. It's about to open. I think it's going to open. Maybe we'll allow submarines and tankers and jet skis, but not cruise ships. I'm about to sign a deal, but I can't find my pen. I found my pen, but it's out of ink. Meanwhile, the United States media hangs on every word and reports it like, hey, we're this close to a deal, like he's telling the truth. This is why you got to read Al Jazeera, the BBC, Reuters. You got to read, the New York Times, but he's going to keep stringing us along. We're this close. What he's doing is he's moving markets. He loves to say something and watch the oil futures go up or go down based on what farts out of his mouth. This is what he wants. He has no intention of making a deal with Iran or reopening Hormuz. He wants to drag this on as long as possible. Earlier in the week, Trump declared we're just minutes away from a deal. Just minutes. Oil futures plummeted. And then, once they plummeted, what did he do? For no reason, he bombed Iran. And then Iran responded by bombing a U.S. airbase in Kuwait, and oil jumped 3% after that. What does he say after that? We're this close to a deal. Futures go down. More bombs. It's going as planned. That is the plan. No plan at all. Chaos. There's money to be made in chaos if you're creating the chaos and you know when it's going to get chaotic and when it's going to seem to be orderly. Trump telling reporters yesterday, I'm not satisfied with the Iran deal yet. I don't feel it in my bones. I still need to see 3 more record quarters of profits for Exxon, ConocoPhillips, Chevron, Shell, BP. And that ain't going to happen if we reopen Hormuz. He's beholden to the oil companies, and they're doing fantastic. The longer you keep Hormuz shut, the more money his benefactors, the oil companies, and Vladimir Putin make. 40% of Vladimir Putin's war budget is funded through the sale of Russian oil. Remember, it's Trump who's blockading Hormuz. It is Trump who has closed Hormuz. Iran said it would agree to open Hormuz for 60 days so they could sit down and negotiate. But Trump doesn't want a deal. He'd rather his friends and family see wild swings in the oil markets. They know when to buy, they know when to sell, and Exxon, Shell, ConocoPhillips, Texaco, Chevron, they rake in the winnings. They don't need inside information to make their profits. They own Trump. As long as Hormuz is closed, they can charge a king's ransom for oil. It's perfect for the oil companies. They don't have to drill for more oil because as long as Hormuz is closed, you can just charge more for it. They don't want to drill. They've said, it's too expensive to drill. It's more profitable just to charge more for the product. You're looking at yesterday's U.S. missile strike in southern Iran's Bandar Abbas. No reason for this attack other than Trump wanted to convince us that there's some kind of activity going on that we had to respond to. There wasn't. They just bombed southern Iran, Bandar Abbas, just to look like he's doing something. Now, you're looking at Iran, that's a map, and that big circle is the Strait of Hormuz, and the left side of the circle would be where Bandar Abbas is. It's where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard purportedly keeps some of its missiles, its missile launchers, its boats, its mines, and drone control stations. Yesterday, if you believe the lies spewing forth, the gusher of lies from the Pentagon, they claimed we fired on Bandar Abbas yesterday because Iran was targeting ships passing through Hormuz. No, we're targeting ships passing through. We're the ones with the blockade going. It's been quiet. Hormuz is quiet. We're not allowing anybody through. Iran is not firing on commercial vessels. You all have Trump fatigue. So you're not, like, I don't blame you. You're not sick. Nobody's as sick as I am. I'm looking at this. I don't have Trump. I have nothing else but Trump and this to pay it. But what else am I going to do? So people, they're firing on ships in the Strait. They're not. Nobody's firing on commercial vessels. Hegseth and Trump wanted to flex their atrophied muscle. They wanted, use some bombs that we don't have. The Pentagon said we had to do this. Iran was threatening ships in the Strait of Hormuz. There are no ships in the Strait of Hormuz. We're blockading it. Every day we hear Trump and Hegseth insist Iran's military has been completely eliminated. That's what they tell us. How do you square that with reality? If Iran's military has been completely eliminated, then go take Karg Island in the Persian Gulf, where 90% of Iran's oil is manufactured. Seize the Strait of Hormuz. If there's no military, free the people of Iran. The regime is toppled, so go in and free them and restore democracy. Get a coalition of Persian Gulf states, march them into Tehran, and bring freedom. You call it the Arsenal of Freedom, Pete Hegseth. You said you've decimated their army. March in to Tehran. Pete Hegseth says American airstrikes destroyed 90% of Iran's missiles and missile launch capabilities. Trump says the missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz have been practically eliminated. To his credit, he said all it takes is just one, though, to destroy a tanker. And then you destroy a tanker, nothing goes through Hormuz. That is the only true thing Donald Trump accidentally said since this bombing campaign began on February 28th. The rest is just lies. He and Hegseth say Iran's army eliminated, decimated. There's nothing left. One of my listeners said decimated means you've taken 1/10 of the army out, which is probably accurate. I'm going to go over some numbers. One of my listeners says decimated means you took 10% out. And I'm going to go over some numbers with you. And they're actually telling the truth. They've decimated Iran's army and their missile capability. They've taken out about 10%. They insist the Navy at the bottom of the ocean. Again, if that's true, if I had a press pass and I were allowed to go to one of these press briefings that Hegseth holds with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, why not take Karg Island in the Persian Gulf? Why not start escorting tankers through Hormuz and shoot down the one or two attack drones that Iran has left? If they have nothing left, why don't we just saunter into Tehran? Why not? Because Hegseth and Trump are lying. I'd like one reporter to ask that question. There's been a flood of information in the past week on the dirty truth that despite dropping thousands upon thousands of cruise missiles, precision bombs, and tomahawks on more than 13,000 targets inside Iran, we have hardly made a dent in their military stockpile. Decimated. Thank you to my listener who pointed that out. We've decimated them. We took out about 10%. For years, I've been telling you that you cannot win wars from the air. Bombs kill civilians. They're great at wiping out elementary schools or apartments. But bombs don't destroy other bombs. Professional courtesy, I guess. I mean, occasionally they succeed, but according to several reports, our own intelligence agencies have told the president that Iran, even before the ceasefire, still had as many as 33 missile sites left, meaning they still had missiles, drones, and mobile missile launchers along the Strait of Hormuz. So they have way more missile sites in the country, but in the Strait of Hormuz, before the ceasefire, 33 missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz, still intact. Missile launchers, drone operation command centers, untouched by all the bombs we dropped. Now, why is that? Why is that? This is the Strait of Hormuz, and above Hormuz is the Iranian coast. And look at the Iranian coast, it's all mountains. Our own intelligence agencies are reporting that as many as 33 missile installation sites have been carved into the sides of these mountains and are buried in man-made caves. Okay, so you have thousands and thousands of mobile missiles and mobile missile launchers that can be rolled out of a cave and then used to fire down at a United States destroyer ship trying to hold Hormuz. This is why we cannot take Hormuz. I know you're an American. You're thinking, wait, we have all these bombs. Why can't we just bomb the mountains where the missile launchers, the missile installations, the command and control centers are? Again, the dirty, dark secret about bombs is they're only good for killing civilians. Sometimes they knock out a jet or a ship, but for the most part, bombs are for the people. Bombs are for the people. In order to pierce the top of a mountain along the Strait of Hormuz and destroy one of the 33 missile installations, the first thing you need is to know where they are, where underneath the mountaintop those missile installations are. Well, let's say you see some kind of activity, you think you have an idea, you see trucks heading towards a cave on the side of a mountain. Well, in order to hit underneath the mountain, you need a special type of bomb. It's called a bunker buster. The big ones weigh 30,000 pounds. That's with their shoes, wallet, and belt off. The smaller ones weigh 5,000 pounds, and they have to be dropped by a fighter jet. So if it's one of the 30,000-pound bombs, you need a B-2 bomber. The smaller ones require an F-15. The big ones, the 30,000-pound bombs, cost about $11 million each. The smaller ones cost about $500,000 each, but you got to buy them in bulk. And you got to wait. Like last weekend was a great time. We picked up 5 at Costco because it was Memorial Day. Okay. According to reports, this is public information. We used 14 of the big bunker busters, the 30,000-pound bunker busters. We used 14 of those bunker busters on Iran since February 28th of this year. The general consensus is we have 10 left, and it will take 2 years to replace them. Now, we still have hundreds of smaller bunker busters left. It's classified. Nobody knows exactly how many we have of those. But here's what's not classified. Bunker busters, whether they're the expensive 30,000-pound ones or the cheap, smaller ones, they cannot pierce the top of a mountain. They lack the kinetic energy to go more than 300 feet through hard rock, which means these bunker busters are worthless when it comes to targeting missile installations buried underneath the mountains along the Strait of Hormuz. Because the mountains along the Strait of Hormuz are about 10 times as high as what these bunker busters can pierce. You have mountains along the Strait of Hormuz that are 3,000 feet high. A bunker buster, if it's one of the big ones, maybe can go down 300 feet. And that's if our military somehow has figured out where exactly inside the mountain these mobile missile launchers and installations are being hidden. So you think you know where it is, and then what? But we don't have bunker busters strong enough to destroy anything more than 300 feet below the surface of a mountain. It is why last June, when we dropped bunker busters, you're looking at the Fordo fuel enrichment plant. Remember this one back in June of last year? You're looking at the top of the mountain. It's the Qom, I'm not pronouncing it properly, the Qom Mountains, I think it's called. And the Iranians, the scientists, carved a nuclear enrichment plant into this mountain. And you're looking at what Israel and the United States targeted last June in that big airstrike. Remember? Last June, where Trump bragged we permanently destroyed Iran's ability to build a nuclear weapon they haven't been trying to build since 2003. Okay. He said it was a tremendous success. We wiped out their nuclear weapons program. He said that in June of last year. On February 28th, he said they're 2 weeks away from building a nuclear bomb. So what did we do in June of last year? We dropped about 14 massive bunker busters. Those are the ones that are 30,000 pounds each. We needed the B-2 stealth bombers. And we dropped 30,000 pounds each, 14 bunker busters, on top of this mountain. And what did we accomplish? What do we know? Despite Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth peacocking and say we mess around and find out, or F around and find out, we accomplished absolutely nothing. Well, how dare you dishonor our troops? No, you dishonor our troops by lying and putting them in harm's way. We think maybe the centrifuges inside this enrichment facility might have gotten rattled, might have gotten destroyed. The entrances to the enrichment facilities probably got blocked by scattered debris, pictures fell off walls. But the enrichment facility itself was encased by concrete walls below hundreds and hundreds of feet of solid rock. All we might have accomplished was making it difficult to get into the enrichment facility because of all the rocks and boulders. That's it. It's why you're hearing talk now of sending in SEAL Team 6 to get the uranium, because the bunker busters won't do it. This is why Trump fatigue is so dangerous. I know it's exhausting. In a republic, we rely on good faith. People like our leaders to practice good faith and tell us the truth. We don't have anyone in the White House or the Pentagon or the Justice Department operating in good faith. Trump fatigue is unacceptable right now. You got to pay attention. I'm sorry. I'm exhausted. But if you don't pay attention to this crap. So members of Congress, Democrats, are saying, they're now openly saying, we lost this war. That is what people are freely saying out loud without fear of being called traitors or treasonous or dishonoring our troops. More and more pundits, military historians, Democratic members of Congress are saying, despite Trump and Hegseth calling these statements treasonous, they are saying we cannot defeat Iran. We cannot topple that regime. And we cannot reopen Hormuz unless the Iranian regime says it's open. Now, what is the truth? Now it's about the Abraham Accords. What? Trump is saying, oh, we have to get the Middle East to sign the Abraham Accords, and Saudi Arabia must make peace with Israel by signing the Abraham Accords. This is just another flashy thing to distract, and now the conversation is, why won't Saudi Arabia sign the Abraham Accords? It's to distract you from the truth. And the truth is, we cannot defeat Iran. We cannot topple their regime. We cannot get them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz unless they decide it's time to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason everybody's depressed and insane is because nobody's speaking that truth. I always say it's like the married couple where the husband's gay, and he won't say he's gay. So they go to therapy, and it's, she's put on weight. She doesn't laugh at my jokes. Our interests have, you're gay. You're gay. Speak the truth. Get out of the marriage because you're gay. You shouldn't have married a woman. You're gay. And this is exactly why people are going nuts right now, because nobody's speaking the truth, which is we cannot defeat Iran. We cannot topple the regime. The Strait of Hormuz does not open until Iran says it's open. And until we accept that truth, he's going to keep saying things like, we're got to the Abraham Accords. Got to solve the Abraham Accords now. The political will here in the United States to send in ground troops ain't there. Because after Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, Americans, stupid as we are, have begun to realize we don't win away games. No matter how much bigger and better equipped our team is, there's just no way to accommodate the home team's advantage. That's the truth. Now, Hegseth are saying, and Trump, they're saying It's unpatriotic. To talk this way is aiding and abetting the enemy. But if you're paying attention, the general consensus inside the Pentagon, and anyone who's willing to admit it inside the White House, the general consensus is Iran, despite all the bombs we dropped, still has 70% of the missiles it had before February 28th. I know it's tough to reckon with the truth because we've spent, as Americans, we spent trillions on weapons thinking mommy and daddy will keep us safe from these imaginary enemies underneath our bed. Enemies who don't exist, that they create, so we spend trillions of dollars on weapons we don't need. We've gone without health care, food stamps, Medicaid. We've put up with a crumbling infrastructure, schools that can't educate, just so we can pour money into all these weapon systems that now it turns out don't win wars. I mean, we could also tax, make rich people pay their fair share. Instead, given the choice, $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon, cutting food stamps, cutting Medicaid, cutting Biden-era Obamacare subsidies, cutting that, but $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon. They say by the end of this year, 40% of Americans who have Obamacare won't have it at the end of the year because Republicans said, get rid of the Biden-era Obamacare subsidies. And they did. December 31st, they expired. These weapons don't win wars. Soldiers do, not weapons. And unless we bring back the draft, which we're not going to do, we don't have enough men and women to invade and then hold Hormuz. I know it's hard to hear that. I know it's hard for Americans to actually believe that a country spending more on its military than practically the rest of the world combined, look that up, we pretty much spend more on weapons than the rest of the world combined. It's hard to believe that we can't bully Iran, which spends under $30 billion a year on its military. And that's a jump. It's about, Paul Krugman wrote, they spend $9 billion. I had it at $30 billion this year. He has it at $9 billion. They only spend $9 billion or $30 billion. We can't bully Iran into opening Hormuz? No. All those expensive weapons, all the things we've gone without for those expensive weapons couldn't destroy Iran's really inexpensive weapons. Some estimates put it at 75%. 75% of Iran's mobile missile launchers are still operational, meaning they are on wheels. And that means they can be wheeled out from underneath a mountain. They can fire down at us and then wheel it back into the mountains. I have a lot of Vietnam vets who listen to this show. They know exactly what I'm talking about because nobody could believe the Viet Cong could do what it did to our soldiers. Now, Trump and Hegseth will accuse people like me of hating America. And by saying this, I'm placing our soldiers in harm's way by speaking the truth. No, Hegseth and Trump would rather lie and place our soldiers in harm's way, get our soldiers killed by lying about what we can and can't do. We are now learning that Iran prepared for this war for decades. It stored practically all its missiles in undisclosed underground facilities. Even Israel doesn't know where they are. And despite all the bombs we dropped, and Israel dropped, 90% of their underground missile storage facilities are still operational. And that doesn't mean they're just able to store these missiles and store their suicide drones. It means they're also able to continue to manufacture more of them. Not only are they able to still manufacture drones and missiles, they're on a wartime footing. And there are some who say Iran is able to replenish their stockpiles faster than we can. Plus, they're getting missile and drone components from Russia and China right now. Not for free. They're paying for Russian and Chinese drones, missiles, missile parts, drone parts. Not free. Russia isn't doing this out of charity. China's not doing it out of charity. Somehow, despite Trump claiming Iran's economy has been completely destroyed, they have the cash. Iran has the gold, has the oil to either pay or barter for weapons and weapons parts. There are now reports coming out of the CIA that Iran's economy can survive Trump's naval blockade of Hormuz for months, deep into 2026. And they have, according to the CIA, figured out ways to get their oil out of the country over land, not through the Strait of Hormuz. It's not the best way to get your oil out is by tanker, but they're using pipes and railroad cars instead of ships. They have thousands and thousands of suicide drones stored, manufactured in warehouses deep below the ground. Israel, United States, if they know where they are, they lack the firepower to penetrate. According to some intelligence reports, the bunker busters are good for sealing a nuclear enrichment facility. Now, what does that mean? It means they can't destroy a nuclear enrichment facility. They can seal it shut, make it impossible to open, like a bag of airplane peanuts. The thinking is, with the bunker busters, is satellites can detect heavy equipment being moved in to remove debris so that the scientists can return, and then we drop bombs on the scientists and the heavy equipment. Cannot defeat Iran. It's not unpatriotic. It's just a fact. Now, why can't we defeat Iran? One simple answer. Because we don't have to. There's no need to defeat Iran. So the American people aren't going to enlist. They're not going to recycle aluminum cans or grow victory gardens just because Donald Trump likes to kill foreigners. How, you might ask, can a small country like Iran humiliate a giant like the United States? Well, this is the same question Putin is asking about Ukraine. The BBC reporting this afternoon that their intelligence agencies estimate 500,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in Ukraine since the invasion. 500,000 Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine. Remember last year, Trump in the Oval Office telling Zelensky, you can't defeat Russia, Putin holds all the cards? Well, Zelensky holds all the cards. And American defense contractors are worried about Ukraine's burgeoning defense industry, which is manufacturing cheaper and better drone interceptors that Persian Gulf states are purchasing from Ukraine because Ukraine's drone interceptors work and they're cheaper. So that's how a small nation defeats a giant. But Trump keeps asking privately, why is Putin unable to defeat Ukraine? LBJ kept asking the same question about Vietnam and the Viet Cong. George W. Bush asked the same question about Iraq and Afghanistan, as did Obama. Obama pulled us out of Iraq. Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan. First year in office, Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan, one of his greatest achievements. Trump, of course, calls it a disaster. Yeah, on the way out, Americans did die. Very tragic and sad, but that entire 20-year war, more than 20-year war, was a disaster, which we lost. And prolonging that disaster would have been the ultimate disaster. Biden was absolutely right. Pulling out, yeah, it was a tragedy because the entire premise of the war was a tragedy. The Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. And this is why Trump fatigue is so dangerous. Everybody was exhausted and terrified after 9/11. We wanted to believe Daddy, and Daddy lied and said the Taliban attacked us. Saddam Hussein attacked us. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Am I done here? Yeah. I got more, but it's too much. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Did not want to do this long a show. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. Sorry I went so long. Please leave a comment. Correct me if I made any mistakes. Share this, like this, do all the things you're supposed to do. My next show is Sunday at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much.